Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Crafting Podcast and this is episode 59. I did not film a podcast last week. I barely picked up my needles. I didn't really get much done and it just didn't really seem like it was worth sitting down and talking to you for however long about the very small amount of knitting and just doing essentially like a filler episode. So I'm back after 2 weeks. My daughter has been off school for the past couple of weeks on her Easter break, and so I've been spending a lot of time with her and therefore not really picked up my needles that much last week. But in stark contrast to that, I have picked up my needles a fair bit this week because the weather has like cooled down. We had a heat wave over the, well, not a heat wave, but it's been warm. So we were out and about a lot over the past week, and then this week I have been home a lot more and it's been quite wet and rainy, so I've been able to get a bit more done on my knitting. Haven't got any sewing to show today, but yes, I did put a video out last week as sort of like a project vlog of the process of knitting this, my wave sweater. So if you did catch that and you did watch it, then thank you so very much for the like positive reception of that video. It really sort of gave me a little bit of a boost to maybe make some more project vlogs in the future. So yes, thank you very much for that. But without further waffle, grab yourself a beverage and let's get into this week's episode. So I've got 3 whips to talk about today and also 3 finished objects. So my first finished object is obviously what I am wearing, and this is the wave sweater by SPEKTAKELSTRIK, and I modified mine from a raglan into a drop shoulder. And if you want to see like the full process and see all the maths and everything that I did to get this from a raglan to a drop shoulder, then I will leave the link to my project vlog and also my Ravelry project page down in the description, because I'm not going to rehash it all now because I've gone on about it so much over the past couple of weeks, and obviously did a full dedicated video towards it. So yeah, I'm not going to rehash a huge amount of it today, but it is finished. This is its debut on the podcast, and so yes, I knit mine up in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the colours Ballerina and Time, and I used a 4.5 and a 5mm needle to knit mine. I had to go up a needle size from the pattern, and yeah, I absolutely love how this fits. I think it's turned out really, really nicely. I think it's blocked out really, really well. The sleeves are a little bit long, but to be honest, I quite like it. It's been nice to have them a little bit longer throughout the like windier days that I've been able to wear this over the past couple of weeks. So I'm finding that to be a really good sort of part of this jumper, and they are really easy to just like fold back when I'm in the middle of doing something, so it's not really bothered me, although I know that having sleeves this long would probably bother some other people, so I totally get that, but to me it's not a problem. I think the neckline has blocked out really, really nicely. This was the problem that I was having the first time I knit it, and I'm glad I went up to the 4.5mm needle for the neckline, and I think it sits really nicely on the neck. I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath this today and I don't think you can really see it at all, which I quite like. So yes, I think that's worked out really, really nicely. And something that I did forget to mention last week when I showed this, when I'd finished the body, I think, or 2 weeks ago, not last week. In the pattern, there is a decrease round just before you start the ribbing. I can never get up high enough without being on the chair. So yeah, there's a decrease round, no, not a decrease round, an increase round here. And the pattern has you do 1 by 1 half twisted rib, and I did not do that increase round. I just went straight into the ribbing from my main fabric, and I don't think that's caused me a problem whatsoever. My husband did take some B-roll for me, so I'll pop that in here. I'll probably put myself in the corner, but yeah, my husband did take some B-roll, which I'll put in here. And you can see that obviously that is not causing a problem, it's not making it cinch in too much, and I think my swap from 1 by 1 half twisted rib to regular 1 by 1 rib has helped that just to sit much more nicely and kind of like straight down. I didn't really have to do too much in the way of like manipulating this in blocking. I just pinned it out and I didn't have to stretch too far or anything. The ribbing was all nice and stretchy anyway. So yeah, I did not add in the increase round, but I think if you were doing the half twisted rib, then I understand why it's there, because half twisted rib, for me anyway, has always turned out to be much tighter than regular 1 by 1 rib. So yes, that is a change that I made. I have been wearing this almost non-stop since the minute I finished it, when I have been able to, because it has been really warm here. But every day that it's been a bit cooler, or in the evening or first thing in the morning, I've been chucking this on. It's been like my go-to. I love how it's really sort of very spring colours. I think it fits in well with my wardrobe, and I love how kind of like big and oversized and easy to wear it is. And the yarn is just so soft. I absolutely love this yarn. It's a really good go-to if you need something that's going to be warm and sort of quite structured, but also really soft. It is definitely a winner for me. But I will say it is pilling a little bit. Obviously I've only had this finished for like a week and a half, and I've worn it a fair few times, but we are getting some pilling along the sleeves. But that's fine. I'm well aware of the fact that if you get a really nice soft yarn, then you probably are going to do some maintenance in the way of de-pilling it. I'm perfectly fine with that, but it is something that I will say about this jumper. If you pick this yarn, then you probably are going to have to do some de-pilling. But it is so easy to throw on, and like I say, it's so next to skin soft. I've worn this with just a vest underneath it and not had any issues, even when it's really started to warm up. So yes, I'm really happy with this, and I'm really glad that I did do those alterations to make it into a drop shoulder, because I think it just fits so much better into my wardrobe than a raglan would, and I really do prefer the fit. So yes, I cast this on March the 1st, and I cast it off on April the 3rd. So this took me a grand total of 33 days to knit, including all of the alterations and having to frog it once and all that kind of thing. So yes, it really didn't take me all that long to knit at all. And cost-wise, the pattern cost £6.88. The yarn, I used 7 balls of the main colour and 5 balls of the contrast colour. So 12 balls in total at £4.20 brought me to a total of £50.40. And so that gives me a grand total for this project of £57.28. So not too shabby, to be honest. It really didn't guzzle as much yarn as I thought it would. I overbought. Well, actually, I bought the same amount that I would for the pattern if I had knit it as a raglan and used less yarn. So there's that to take into account as well. And like I said, all of the alterations and everything are linked in my Ravelry project page, and also I have a standalone vlog if you want to go and watch that if you have some spare time. But yeah, no pressure. So that is my first finished object for today. Carrying on with my theme of colourwork, my second finished object is also a colourwork project, and it is my Colourwork Cuff Club socks for the month of March. And so they just look like this. This is a pattern by Summer Lee. If you're unfamiliar with the Colourwork Cuff Club, then it's a pattern that you pay for once and you get an update every month. And if you signed up now, then you get all of the past charts as well. It started in August of last year and it runs until July of 2025. So we're fairly well into it now. And I am still really enjoying getting a new chart every month. And I am still trying to knit them up like as I go. So I'm behind by 2 still, but you know, that happens. So this was the chart for the month of March, these lovely little flowers. And I used Giddy Yarn's BFL sock from her 2024 Grinch themed advent, and this was the 4th skein, so this was the last skein. I finally finished knitting up all of the colourways from that advent. So yeah, this was the 4th skein, and it was called The Grinch's Heart Grew 3 Sizes that day, and the blue is the mini from week 3, and then the yellow is Rico Socks Neon in the colour yellow. So I think last time I showed these I was at the heel flap of sock 2, and obviously I've now finished them and they are all blocked and ready to go. But yeah, these were just a really nice sort of simple, easy stockinette project for the most part. The colourwork chart was very small for this month, or last month now I suppose, and yeah, I'm glad to have these done. They did feel like they kind of went on forever for a little while. I think because I've knit a fair few pairs of like striped socks or colourwork, like full colourwork socks recently, so an all over stockinette sock kind of felt like it was going on forever. But I think it's also because I didn't do these like 2 at a time on 2 separate small circulars, which is what I have been enjoying doing with quite a lot of my other pairs of socks. And I think that really does kind of make it feel like they're not taking quite as long. I mean, in reality, I think it takes the same amount of time, but it stops me from procrastinating casting on and doing the ribbing of the second sock, because usually that's what ends up making me kind of not want to cast it on, because I do my ribbing on a different size to the rest of the sock. So I did my ribbing and my colourwork on a 2mm, and the rest of my sock is knit on a 2.25, and I ended up doing 30 rounds after the end of the colourwork for the leg. I also do 15 rounds for the majority of my rib, the majority of the time for the rib on my colourwork cuff club socks as well. So yeah, 15 rounds of the rib and then the colourwork chart, and then 30 rounds for the leg to make them a little bit longer, and then I do the heel flap and gusset to pattern, and then 65 rounds for the foot before doing the toe. And so yeah, I think these are a really super fun pair of socks. I can't wait to be able to wear them, and I'm very happy to have them finished now. It didn't take me too much longer than I expected. I wanted to get them finished in March, and I went over by, what was it, 7 days? So yeah, not too bad. So I cast these on March the 5th, and I cast them off on April the 7th. So these also took me a grand total of 33 days to knit. And cost-wise, the pattern costs £10.57 for the entirety of the Colourwork Cuff Club socks. So that's all 12 charts plus the bonus charts as well, because there are often more than one. And then the yarn, the Giddy yarn skein would have cost me roughly around about £20, but obviously I got it in an advent. And the Rico Socks Neon is £8.50 per skein, so that gives me a grand total of £39.07. But I'm really happy to have a new pair of colourful Colourwork Cuff Club socks to add to my collection. Okay, so finished object number 3 is also a pair of Colourwork Cuff Club socks, and these are the April chart. Now these absolutely flew off my needles. I have kind of learned now that when my daughter is off school and we've got lots of days out planned and I'm in like full mum mode all day, then I tend to gravitate more towards socks and hats and small projects like that. There are generally a lot of stockinette or like simple ribbing, and that are very easy to pick up and put down, because I don't tend to get like dedicated crafting time when she's off school. So it's very much just sort of like anything that I can do like 2 or 3 stitches of, or maybe a round at a time, and not really have to think about or get a pattern out or anything. So yeah, these absolutely flew off my needles because of that. So I knit up size medium for all of my Colourwork Cuff Club socks, and I used a 2mm needle for my ribbing and my colourwork again, and a 2.25 for the rest of the sock. And I chose to do these in all scraps. So here they are. I really loved the little rain cloud chart that we got this month. I think it's so fun. And I chose to do my clouds in a really cute fluffy boucle that I had hanging about in my stash. I think this is from The Lonely Knitter. So yes, these are my April chart. And then the rest of the socks are knit in all of the blue scraps that I had hanging around in my scrap basket. And I have absolutely no idea what any of them are. So I had 2 kind of fairly large sort of scrappy cakes of this sort of blue variegated yarn. So I decided to use that as kind of like a main colour, and then put all of my little scraps in between it, because I just didn't think I'd had enough to do a different colour for each different stripe, and I did 5 round stripes. So they've ended up kind of looking like a very variegated skein. But I did manage to get the stripes to match on both socks, and I did that by essentially casting them on both at the same time with 2 small circular needles, and then just knitting them and essentially like doing a couple of stripes on one and then a couple of stripes on the other, and keeping them going at the same time. And that made them fly off the needles. It was just such a quick knit, and I think because they were majoritarily stockinette, it was just very simple to just be able to pick them up, put them down. And because they were only 5 round stripes, it was easy to just say, oh, I'll just do this one stripe, and then I somehow ended up doing like 5 stripes on them. So yes, These were super quick and I'm very, very happy with them. They are really, really soft. I think the majority of these were probably like 75-25 merino scraps compared to these, which are like I think it's an 80-20 BFL. So yes, these are definitely much more rustic compared to these. And I again did 30 rounds after the colourwork for the leg. I only did 10 rounds for the ribbing on these because I did think I was going to run out of yarn much quicker than I wanted to if I had done the full sort of like 15 rounds that I would usually do. So I only did 10 rounds for the ribbing on these. And then there's 30 rounds after the colourwork for the leg, the heel flap and gusset, and then again 65 rounds for the foot after the gusset decreases before the toe. So yes, I did kind of get a little bit concerned because this is the first chart where you have to cast on more stitches than what I usually would for the colourwork, and so these are a little bit baggy around the kind of calf and ankle area, which is a little bit frustrating, but to be honest I think because the boucle is in there it should kind of sort of bring them in a little bit more as I wear them, but they are just a little bit wider than my other ones, so if I put them together. It's really, really minimal, but they do kind of slip down, but I wonder if that's also because they are in like a softer yarn compared to my other ones. But yeah, not the end of the world. Like, you have to do that to be able to get all the chart in, so yes. These were so quick. Now I don't have costings for these because obviously I don't know what majority of the yarns are, and like they are just really, really scrappy. But I did use up all my scraps, so that is great. So I just have like stats of how long they took me. So I cast these on April the 7th and I cast them off on April the 14th. So these took me a grand total of 7 days to knit. And they were just really, really nice to have like in my bag or just sat like where I usually sit on the sofa, so I could just quickly pick them up, put them down. It was just really comforting to have a nice little sock knit, and I think the stripes also really kind of spurred me on to knit them. So those are all my finished objects. I feel like I really flew through those, but you know, 2 of them were essentially the same pattern, just different charts. And now we are into whips, and we are once again visiting the Colourwork Cuff Club socks, but this is the January chart. I cast these on ages ago, it feels like, and I kind of forgot that I had them on the needles. They were in a project bag from the last time I filmed. I obviously forgot to take them back downstairs with me, and I just completely forgot about them, hence why I cast on the April chart despite the fact that I didn't have these finished. But yes, these are the January chart for the Colourwork Cuff Club. I'm again knitting them on a 2mm and a 2.25mm needle, size medium, and the yarns I'm using are Cheshire Yarns Peruvian Highland Wool 4-ply in the colour Superstar? I was about to say Starstruck, but I think, yeah, it's Superstar. And then Rico Socks Neon in the colour green. And then the main skein is Dandelion and Dogwood sock yarn in the colour Lustreware, which was a Christmas colourway from a couple of years ago. And so I think this is the marker that shows where I was the last time I showed these. And I have just finished off the foot. I think I had like 15 rounds of the foot left to go. It really wasn't that much. I don't know why I didn't just finish the foot when I had them out last time. But yeah, I finished off the foot and I have added in the toe, and I decided to go for a contrast toe on these. I thought it would just kind of tie them in a little bit more and make a little bit more use of the green that I used to break up the wave. And I really like it. I like the pop of colour at the toe. I think it's really nice. So yes, finished off sock 1, and I have also cast on sock 2. And I've just got to the point where I finished the ribbing and put it on a small circular. So I again only did 10 rounds of the rib for this one instead of 15 because I'm again using like scrappy bits of yarn that I had left over. So I really don't have very much of the Cheshire yarns left over. This is a bit of a mess in this bag. So yeah, this is all I have left of the Cheshire yarn. So I'm not sure I'm going to get the full like 10 rounds that I need before I start the colourwork out of this. So I do have this kind of like sparkly also rainbow yarn, which is a little bit more saturated, and it's obviously a different base. So I think I might try and like stripe this in, like do some helical knitting to get this and this to kind of last for the full amount that I need, because I really don't think I've got enough to get 10 rounds out of this. I think maybe I've got enough to do like 5. So yeah, I think if I do some helical knitting, I'll just have enough to get to the end of the colour work, and then it doesn't really matter because that's the only bit that I need this yarn for. So hopefully it works out okay. Because it'd be a real shame if the bit that I run out of yarn on is that top bit of the sock, because that's probably gonna be the bit that's like most visible. But yeah, it's not the end of the world. I can always knit another pair. It's not the end of the world. I like to sort of try and use up these tiny bits of sock yarn, because otherwise I feel like, what else am I going to do with them? They're just lingering in my stash. So yeah, I don't think it's really going to be all that noticeable if I use this alongside the other one, because they are only socks. But hopefully I will be able to get these done fairly soon, and then I might be able to catch up with another one of the charts that I have missed. I only have February and December to catch up on once I have finished these. And since I finished the April one so quickly, I might be able to get another one of those cast on by the end of the month. It depends how quickly I get through these. But these will now become my main like travel whip. I just need to make sure I get through the colour work, and then they can just sit in my bag as travel knitting, because they will be easy peasy stockinette. So those I cast on March the 14th, and they have currently been on my needles for, once again, 33 days. Why has everything been on my needles for 33 days? But yeah, those won't be done in 33 days because there's no way that I'm going to get that sock finished today, especially since it's quite late in the day. But yes, so those were the last pair of socks that I have to feature in this podcast. I am now back into the realm of jumpers. So whip number, what are we on now? Whip number 5. No, not whip number 5. Whip number 2, project number 5, is my Gr8 Gingham Raglan by Jessie MAED Designs. Now, I did feature this as a swatch in my last episode, and the joy of this jumper, the fact that it's knit bottom up, is that you start with the sleeves. So I used my first sleeve essentially as a swatch, so I could get like a real sort of gauge of what my gauge was going to be in the round, because sometimes I find when I'm doing like the bit where you bring the yarn around the back, sometimes I don't feel like that's all that accurate. So the fact that I could just cast this on a 16-inch circular and do my swatch kind of worked out really nicely for me to be able to actually get an accurate gauge of what my stitch counts and everything are going to be. So yeah, like I said last week, I cast on with a what is it called? Provisional cast on, and left it on some tubing, and then I've just been knitting up the sleeve because this is like a balloon sleeve, so I will pick up the stitches, do the decrease and the ribbing, and then just bind it off instead of doing a cast on and doing the ribbing first, which I think is a really good way of doing it, to be honest, because then you essentially have started your project and swatched in one go. So up to about here of this is blocked, and all of the rest is the progress that I have made. Oh, hang on, here's my marker. So yeah, up to my marker has been blocked, and then everything afterwards has been knit over the past couple of weeks. So I really have not worked on this very much. I have done, what is that, 2.5 pattern repeats. But yeah, I just haven't really had the headspace to knit a like all over colourwork jumper over the past couple of weeks. I've been sort of really craving my like simple stockinette projects, hence why this has not had a huge amount of work on it. But I am knitting size 1. I'm using the recommended 4mm needles, but I'm knitting mine off gauge ever so slightly. So the recommended stitch count is 22 stitches per 10 centimeters. But I am getting 21 stitches. So I'm getting a little bit more ease, but I would prefer to have a little bit more ease because I'm kind of, I want a size that's sort of somewhere between size 1 and size 2. A little bit more ease than size 1, but not as much as size 2. So it actually works out quite nice for me because it kind of means that I can knit size 1 but get that extra bit of ease that I wanted. So the yarns that I'm using are Yarbow 2 Triar Ul in the colours Cherry Pie, which is my contrast colour, and Apple Blossom, which is my main colour. And I absolutely love these. I think they are so nice together. and I'm really looking forward to having the final project. It's just I just haven't had the headspace to knit an all over colourwork project, but hopefully I will now be able to get back to this, especially since I've now like memorised the chart, so it's a bit easier to kind of pick up and put down a little bit more, and it is obviously on a small circular, so it's not like huge amounts of work. It's not like if I had to knit it magic loop, and I really don't like knitting colourwork magic loop. It just irks me. I just don't like it. So yeah, over the past week I have added 3 more pattern repeats. I think I need a fair few more to be able to get length on this sleeve. This does feel enormous, but it is a balloon sleeve. So yeah, I'm going to just be working up this sleeve and then hopefully getting through the other one before I need to cast on the body. And I think I've kind of decided that I am going to do a provisional cast on for the body and then knit all of my ribbing at the end, instead of sort of doing a tubular cast on and then doing ribbing, because I'm still not decided on whether or not I want to do the half twisted rib or just sub in 1x1 rib like I have on this. I really don't enjoy half twisted rib. It's not my favourite. So yeah, I'm undecided about what I want to do about the ribbing, and since I won't have to knit the neckband until the very last thing, I think I might just make the decision then about what kind of ribbing I want to do. But yeah, that is my progress so far. The yarn is really surprising. I think this is the most dramatic like pre-blocking to post-blocking change that I've had in a yarn to date. So everything below the marker has been blocked and everything above the marker hasn't. I'm not sure it's showing up all that well on camera, but everything below the marker is just so much more like bouncy and full and filled in. And then up here where it hasn't been blocked, it's just very kind of gappy. You can see the floats behind it. It's definitely one of those that really, really blooms with blocking, and it's also softened up so much in blocking. I did kind of get a little bit concerned when I started knitting this, and I kind of felt what it was like, and it felt quite scratchy, it felt very rustic, and I was a bit like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be like the super soft like spring jumper that I was expecting. Am I going to have to wear a layer underneath this? Now, I don't find this prickly at all. But there is definitely a real difference in the feel of it pre-blocking versus post-blocking. It softens up so much, and I'm really, really happy about that. So yeah, it's definitely one of those yarns that you might not think much of when you start knitting with it, and you might sort of pick it up in the skein and be a bit like, ooh, it's a bit scratchy. But after it's been washed and blocked, it's just absolutely wonderful. It's a really, really lovely yarn, and I think it's going to work really, really well for this project. So yeah, it's a sport weight yarn, which I don't work with very often, but pleasantly surprised me as of yet, so hopefully it will continue to do so. So I cast this on March the 27th, and so it's currently been on my needles for 20 days, but to be honest, most of those it has been sat in a bag, banished to the world of whips that I don't have headspace for at the moment. So yes, that is my Gr8 Gingham Raglan, and hopefully it might actually have a little bit more progress to show you next week, but we shall see. So my third and final whip has been where the majority of my attention has been for my knitting time over the past couple of weeks. And I mentioned that I wanted to swatch for this in my last episode, and now it is quite significantly more than a swatch. So this is my Charlie Pullover by MORECA Knit, and I am knitting this up in BC Garn Samilla Melange in the colours vanilla and light green, and I'm knitting size 1. And this is my swatch. So I swatched just in the vanilla since this is a striped project. I didn't see the point in doing a stripe for the swatch. I kind of knew what the colours were going to look like together, just from seeing them in the skein. So I swatched on... No, sorry. So the recommended needles for this are a 4mm for the main fabric, and I looked at the gauge and kind of knew what my gauge was for a kind of like fingering / sport weight yarn, and knew that a 4mm was gonna give me a gauge that was far too big. So I went down one size to a 3.75 for my swatch, and that is what this is knit on. And this fabric is perfectly fine, but it was going to mean that it was going to turn out way too big, and there was no way that I was going to be able to go down a needle size. But there, like when I sort of hold this up, this is kind of quite, I wouldn't say holy, but you can definitely kind of see like a fair few gaps in it. It's quite light and airy, and also my tension is just quite uneven. And so for my main fabric to be able to get gauge, I went down another 2 needle sizes. So I am knitting this 3 needle sizes down from the recommended needle size. So mine is being knit on a 3.25mm needle for my main fabric, which meant that all of my double knitting is being done on a 2.25mm needle, which is what I usually knit my socks on. So it's been quite an intense knit. It's not been the like easy breezy stockinette project that I expected it to be, and I cast it on because I was like, oh, hang on, I need an easy breezy stockinette jumper to knit. Let's cast this on and get it to the point where it's joined in the round. That shouldn't take too long, and then just get going on the body and the sleeves, and then come back and do the collar and everything afterwards. I did not realise until I opened the pattern to cast it on that the entire pattern kind of relies on you knitting the collar stand and the collar first and then going into the yoke. So yeah, gone was my like real easy breezy stockinette project, and here was my slightly more complicated stockinette project. But it was fine. It was actually really, really easy, and the pattern is so well written and just takes you through it step by step, and like is not at all complicated, because I wouldn't say it holds your hand, but it really does explain it really, really well. And like in the margins of the pattern are videos for each step to kind of help you if you are sort of confused about any of the wording or anything like that. And I absolutely love the way that this pattern is written. It's so clear and concise, and I'm very, very happy with it. But without further waffle, this is my progress. So this is like it's like a contiguous saddle shoulder, but you don't knit your sleeves in the contiguous style. You go back and pick up your sleeves and pick up these stitches that are on hold for the saddle shoulder. So this is what we are looking like at the moment. So you start with this sort of collar stand here, and you cast on using Jenny's, it's not Jenny's surprisingly stretchy cast on, because that's not right. It's the Jenny's, what is it called? Jenny's Magic Cast On. So yeah, Judy's Magic Cast On. So yeah, it's Judy's Magic Cast On. I had to refresh myself with that because I was a bit like, I don't think I've done this for a really long time since I knit socks toe up. So yes, you knit the collar stand, and then you pick up stitches for the collar and you knit that, and the entire collar is knit in double knitting. It's not knit in the round, and there are both increases and short rows in the double knitting for the collar. But it was so much fun to do, if I show you the right way. So it creates this really lovely like sort of slanted shape for the edges of the collar, but gives you more length at the front than it does at the back. So you've not got tons of fabric flapping around back there, but you've got enough that it sits nicely once it's folded. And it's just so clever. I had never done increases or short rows in double knitting before, and it just didn't feel at all difficult because the pattern was written so clearly, and like obviously there were videos and everything if you wanted to go and watch them. I didn't personally feel like I needed to watch the videos. I was happy enough with the written instructions. But yeah, it's just made for such a beautiful shaped collar, and I'm so happy that I picked this pattern for this kind of like collared jumper that I wanted, because this is just absolutely stunning. So yes, the collar took me a long time. This was a lot of double knitting on very, very small needles. This is a sport weight yarn, and so it's a fairly hefty collar, but I think it gives it good structure, so it should hold up quite nicely and not be like really sort of floppy and drapey, which is not really what you want from a collar really. So I think it's worked out really, really nicely. and then you work the backs and the fronts using increases to do your shoulders and everything. And the whole thing is knit, so like all of your finishes are done like as you go, so I'm not gonna have to go back and like do the like plackets down here or join them or anything, because it's all done as you go, which I absolutely love. I love the fact that I'm essentially just gonna be able to knit this, sew in the ends, and it'll be done, and not have to go back and do a load of sort of extra finicky bits. So yeah, the plackets were done like when you knit the fronts, and then you join the two plackets together when you join the fronts together before you knit down to the end of the underarms. And there's some really lovely shaping in these underarms as well. I think it's a really, really well written pattern for fit. So you decrease and then you increase again to really fit the like shape of your sort of underarm. But I think this is going to fit so nicely. So you start your first stripe in the section where you're knitting flat, and then you join, and then you start knitting the rest of the stripes. There are 4 stripes, I believe, in this, and they're much thicker than I thought they were. For some reason I thought they were thinner stripes, but I'm quite happy with the thick stripe. I think it's going to work out really nicely. And so yeah, I'm now just in the like tons and tons of stockinette for the body. So now I've got my like easy breezy stockinette project that I was kind of looking for, but I just had to do a little bit more work to get there. But like I say, I am glad that I have done that extra bit of work now instead of having to go back once it's already done. And I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how this continues to work up. This yarn is buttery soft. It's so nice to work with. I love the BC Garn Loch Lomond, and this is softer than the Loch Lomond and is a sport weight, so it's not got the heft of it, but it still has a lot of the kind of like lofty, airy qualities of the BC Garn Loch Lomond. So it's definitely kind of up there with my like favourite yarns at the moment. So yeah, I would definitely work with this again. It's really, really nice, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And part of me is sort of like, oh, I knit that, that's amazing. And it's all because of the pattern. Yeah, it's just absolutely genius. And I'm really, really excited to have this in my wardrobe. I think it's going to be a lovely spring piece. Just to quickly like chuck on in the morning with shorts or with my like linen lane pants that I've got, but also really easy to style throughout the rest of the year. And I really like how the placket is still not like really, really open. I like that it's kind of still semi-closed, so it's not like flapping about around your neck all the time. So I am nearly at the end of my second skein of my main colour. So all of this is like 2 skeins of the main colour, and then obviously I've joined in the contrast just for the stripes. So it's really not guzzling as much yarn as I expected it to. These are only 50-gram hanks, so this is like what, just over 100 grams, because obviously I've joined in the contrast colour. So yeah, I really, really did think with all this double knitting that it was going to take a lot more yarn just to get through the yoke, but it's really surprised me how little it's taken, and it is a really lovely kind of like lightweight project. So hopefully it's going to be a really nice lightweight garment as well. But yes, I am going to just continue on down the body for a little bit more. I might even pick up a sleeve. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm really, really enjoying knitting that. So I cast this on April the 2nd, and it's currently been on my needles for 14 days. So really, really not that long at all. It actually was quite, like once I got through that collar, it was quite quick to knit up. Especially since you were doing like fronts and backs, which obviously don't have that many stitches. But now that I'm in the body, the rounds are taking quite some time because it's like over 200 stitches to get through. But I'm very, very much looking forward to knitting away on that a little bit more. So that is everything that I have to show for today. I do have some bits and pieces that I do want to try and get cast on this week. So I really want to get the February chart for the COLORWORK Cuff Club cast on this week, and I think I've decided that I'm going to use these minis from the Lonely Knitter or Folk Yarn Studios, and these are her Wicked theme minis. So there's 5 in here of different pinks and greens, and I think these are going to work up really, really nicely for like the heart charts with like bits of ferrule in there that were released for the COLORWORK Cuff Club for February. But I'm unable to get these wound up because unfortunately my Swift had a bit of an accident this week whilst I was winding up some extra yarn for my Charlie pullover. So my Swift was 3D printed for me by my husband. It was an Armitage style Swift, and one of the like arms of it snapped whilst I was putting one of my skeins of yarn on it. I think it was just, the tension was just too much for it. So I've had to order a new Swift. So hopefully once that arrives, I will be able to get these caked up. And then I will also be able to get the rest of my yarn for my Gr8 Gingham caked up, because that is currently sat on this shelf. So I'm sort of glad I haven't progressed too much further on that, because I don't really have a way to wind up the yarn without getting someone to stand there whilst I ball it up. So yes, hopefully that arrives in the next couple of days, and I can get going on those. And I also want to get started on the Mystery Gnome by Imagine Landscapes, or Sarah Shearer, that was meant to be... the clues have been being released all the way through April, but what I forgot was obviously that my daughter was going to be on holiday through majority of April, and so I just haven't had time to cast it on. So I've also not looked at the clues, so I shall hopefully be able to get that done over the next couple of weeks and kind of catch up before the end of the month. So like I say, that is everything from me this week. I hope you have all had a wonderful couple of weeks. I would love to know what you guys have been working on over the past couple of weeks. If you want to let me know down in the comments, and I will catch up with you all next week with another podcast. Happy making!